Hi, fifth graders. This is Mrs. Udsey from Conwest Elementary. Today, I am going to be teaching you guys about a certain type of figurative language. I know this week you've been learning about figurative language, and I know you've learned about similes and you've learned about metaphors so far. Today, you're going to be learning about a different type of figurative language, which is called hyperbole. Okay, not hyperbole, but hyperbole. All right. So, just to refresh your memory, remember that authors or writers will use figurative language to try to get the reader to understand and imagine what it is they're really trying to say in a different kind of way. Instead of saying it literally, they'll say it in a non-literal way. And I know you guys learned about literal and non-literal on Monday. So using figurative language, it helps to make the writing more exciting. It helps the reader to be able to really create like a mental image in their head, maybe to really evoke some type of emotion from the reader, but it makes the reading a lot more interesting and fun when you're using figurative language. So, what is a hyperbole? Well, hyperboles are figures of speech that use intentional exaggeration. So, when you see a hyperbole, it's that type of figurative language that uses a lot of exaggeration. So, when you exaggerate something, it is you make it seem larger or a bigger deal than it really is. You exaggerate it. So, for example, I know a lot of my kids would say, "Oh my God, my mom would kill me if she found out I did that." That's an example of an exaggeration and a hyperbole because literally your mom's not going to kill you because you came to school the next day. So you're all good. But you're trying to get the point across that, oh no, I would be in big trouble. So instead of literally saying, I would get in trouble by my mom, you're using a hyperbole or an exaggeration to say, oh my God, my mom would kill me. Hyperboles are descriptive language, and using a hyperbole is a creative way to describe something. So, hyperboles, their main job is to describe, and it's to describe something in a really fun and creative way, a way that's going to draw the reader and keep them interested. Okay, and we kind of talked about that already. By exaggerating certain characteristics, hyperboles give the reader a vivid mental picture. So here's an example of a hyperbole. He snores louder than a freight train. That's an example of a hyperbole because it is an exaggeration. Nobody in this world can snore louder than a freight train. And if they do, they probably need to go get checked out because something's not right. But if an author uses this hyperbole like he snores louder than a freight train, that is going to let the reader know that, oh, wow, he must be snoring really, really loud. Okay. So there you go. Example of a hyperbole that is using exaggeration to get a point across and to create a mental picture and to describe something vividly for the reader. Let's look at another example. We stood in line so long that grass began to grow on our shoes. Okay. Literally, grass did not start to grow on their shoes. But this hyperbole is exaggerating the fact that they stood in line for a very, very long time. It shows us that they had to wait for a really long time. And sometimes hyperboles, they've been used so many times in life, and you've heard many of them. You hear them every day, really, that they've started to just become like common phrases or things that people say all the time. For example, here's one that's pretty common. I would die of embarrassment. You probably hear that all the time. That's a hyperbole. You're exaggerating your embarrassment. You're trying to get across the point that you were super embarrassed. Here's another one. He thinks money grows on trees. This is one my mama used to always say, and my daddy to me. Oh, you must think money grows on trees. Well, we all know money doesn't grow on trees, literally, but that's just a saying or an exaggeration to exaggerate that, oh, you must think that it's easy to just get money, that it's something that is easily attained. Okay, so those are examples of hyperboles because they are exaggerating something. Here's another one. I'm so hungry, I could eat a whole elephant. So, thinking about that sentence that I just read, and that is a hyperbole, how do you know that this line, and it came from 101 Dalmatians? I don't know if you guys have seen that. You're kind of young, but anywho, this line came from 101 Dalmatians, and it is a hyperbole. How do you know that is a hyperbole? I'm going to give you some think time for a little bit. I want you to think about that answer. And then I also want you to think about the second part down here that says, what does it mean? So I want you to be thinking to yourself right now, how do you know that this is a hyperbole? And what does it mean? I'm going to pause and give you a second to think about that. And I want you to stop and really think. You don't need to write anything down, just think about it in your head. Okay, I hope that was enough think time. So think about what you said, and I'm going to give you the answer. So we know that this is a hyperbole because we can see here that it is describing something and it's exaggerating it at the same time. This is an exaggeration. I'm so hungry I could eat a whole elephant. No one can eat a whole elephant. And then when we think about what does this mean? Well, it means that they were super hungry. They were really hungry. So that hyperbole is showing and describing how hungry one is. So let's look here at this slide. And this slide it says find 4 hyperboles in this passage, but I'm going to tell you this, there's only one. Okay. So we're going to read this, and I want you to be thinking about what is the one hyperbole that is in this passage. Drew's mom couldn't believe her eyes when she came home from the grocery store and saw that her son still hadn't taken out the trash. I must have reminded him at least 1,000 times, she said. I told her that I would take care of it after I finished playing my video game, Drew protested. Stop. Think for a moment. What is the hyperbole that is in this short passage? And there's only one. I know at the top it says 4, but there's only one. Okay. So give you some think time. Think about that. What is the one hyperbole here? And then what does it mean? Think about that too. Okay. So hopefully you thought about that. And let's now talk about the answer. Hopefully you thought and you knew that the whole hyperbole was, I must have reminded him at least 1,000 times. I'm sure you hear that all the time from your parents. But yes, that was the hyperbole here because it is an exaggeration. It is exaggerating the amount of times that he was reminded. And it just means that mom had to remind him a lot. Okay, let's try again. And I know it says 4 up here, but there's only going to be 1 in this one too. So let's read this one and be thinking about where is or which one of these sentences in here is the one hyperbole in this passage. Christy and her friends have been looking forward to performing together in the school talent show for months, but they couldn't agree on what to do in their act. Near the end of a long and disappointing planning session, Christy suggested that the girls learn a new song on the recorders that they had purchased for their music class. Not surprisingly, Christy's friends immediately labeled the suggestion as the worst idea ever. Take a moment, think about where is this one hyperbole in this passage and what does it mean? Giving you some think time. Okay, hopefully that was enough think time for you. Let's look at the correct answer. Hopefully you were thinking that very last sentence there. Not surprisingly, Christy's friends immediately labeled the suggestion as the worst idea ever. That is an hyperbole. And it's an hyperbole because it is exaggerating the worst idea ever. Like, really? How do we know that's the worst idea ever? Like, really? There's been a lot of ideas in this world, and trust me, they've been bad. So that's an exaggeration. And they are just trying to exaggerate the fact that her idea wasn't good. So the meaning means that Christy's idea wasn't good. Sorry, Christy. Try again next time. All right, so now with this one, there are actually, make sure I gave you the answers. Hopefully you didn't see it. Okay, so on this one, there are actually 4 hyperboles in this passage, okay? So kind of see as I'm reading if you can kind of point out the 4 that you hear as I read. Marion wanted a summer job. If I just had a job, she thought, I could buy everything I ever wanted. However, she was nervous about going on a job interview. She was so nervous that she felt as shaky as a leaf on a tree. After a few interviews, Marion got a job at Dairy Queen. She served up mountains of ice cream. She served enough sodas to fill an ocean. Finally, payday came, and Marion was happy to get paid. I'm sure she was. All right. So hopefully as I was reading that, you were kind of trying to pick out the hyperboles that you heard as I read. I'll give you a little think time to search for them some more if you need that time. All right. Hopefully you've got 4 in your head. And if you don't, that's okay. Hopefully you were able to find a couple at least. Let's look and see what 4 they were. Right here. If I just had a job, she thought, I could buy everything I ever wanted. Really? Who can buy everything they ever wanted? Like, seriously. That's an exaggeration. That's a hyperbole. And it means that if she had a job and had money, she could buy herself stuff. And she would be able to take care of herself and get the things that she needs. Not necessarily everything that she wanted, but pretty sure the things she needs. Second one, she was so nervous that she felt as shaky as a leaf on a tree. This was our second hyperbole, exaggerating how nervous she felt. The writer wanted to get across that she was super nervous, that she was like a leaf on a tree shaking. That's pretty nervous. That gives me a mental picture in my head of how nervous this girl was if she's shaking like a leaf. And then the third one, she served up mountains of ice cream. Really? We giving out mountains of ice cream at Dairy Queen now? Really? Exaggeration, hyperbole, to express the fact that she served a lot of ice cream. That's what that means. She just served a lot of ice cream when she was working. And then the fourth one, she served enough sodas to fill an ocean. Another hyperbole. Nobody can fill the ocean with soda. That would take a lot of soda. We wouldn't have Coke or Sprite or anything around here these days if we could fill up an ocean with it. So that's another example of a hyperbole. Okay. So all of those are examples of exaggerations. They're all examples of how the writer is trying to really create an image in the reader's head, trying to maybe show some type of emotion, and really just to get the reader to imagine what it is they're trying to say and to get it across clearer and to describe it in a clearer way. Okay. So that's our lesson today for hyperboles. I hope you enjoyed it. You are going to have some independent practice next where you're going to give a try at finding some hyperboles on your own in a passage, and I wish you all of luck with that. And I really hope you guys enjoyed that vocabulary video on hyperboles. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. I was kind of grooving and moving when I was listening to that. I got real excited. So I hope you guys got excited about that vocabulary video you watched at the beginning. And if you have not watched the vocabulary video, go watch it. I think you'll really enjoy it. All right, folks, that's it for me. Mrs. Utsy's out.